No one.
Oh,
Door.
so it was set up this time that we had to be invited in. Interesting.
Yeah.
It was weird.
I guess I'm lucky that I got in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just so you know, my dog is roaming around because my husband's not home. So
What kind of dog do you have, Nancy?
he is a 13-and-a-half-year-old pit bull mix.
Oh,
So she's very needy at this age.
I have a Pekingese, and I don't know the other half of her. She's 9 pounds, and she acts as though she is the queen, but frankly, she does run the house, so she, technically speaking, is the queen.
They always do. The dogs always run the house.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you all to the October 7th special board meeting. First of all, who's here in the building? Officer Freeman, Tracy Councilman, Gretchen Walter. Virtually, we have Mike Picallo, Judy Boyke, Jonathan Karp, Nancy White, Elko Johans, Steve Rotuno, Nicole Walsh, and that should be it on that. The clerk,
Karen Tavernese.
Karen Trevany, sorry, missed you.
Thank you. I'm here.
Okay, Tracy, are you all set to call the roll? Okay.
Counselor Blakey.
Here.
Counselor Carr.
Here.
Counselor White.
Here.
Counselor Picallo.
Present.
Supervisor Meyer.
Here. First item on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Town Clerk Councilman.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag
United
of the United
States
States of America,
to
to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Were you going to add anything?
I would like to say thank you and request a moment of silence for everyone who is providing positive actions that have supported one another during these challenging times. Remember that you can smile from a 6-foot distance. Together, we can create an atmosphere of support and hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Ms.
Number
Councilman.
2,
Approval of abstract. Resolved, the Cicero Town Board approves abstract number 41 dated September 30th, 2020.
I'll second it, Councilor Picallo.
discussion on the item? Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Blakey.
Yes.
Counselor Carr.
Aye.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Picallo.
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
Yes, item is adopted. Nancy, next item.
Budget modifications. Resolved, the budget modifications are approved as presented.
I'll
Second.
second, Councilor Picallo.
Discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Blakey.
Yes.
Counselor Carr.
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Picallo.
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
Yes, item is adopted. Next item, number 4, the board approves hiring Sean M. Edwards as a New York State JCJS certified part-time police officer effective October 12th, 2020. Whereas the town of Cicero Police Department is in need of a certified New York State JCJS part-time police officer, and Mr. Edwards passed a thorough background investigation and was recommended for hire by the chief of police. Resolved that the town board approves the hiring of Sean M. Edwards as a certified New York State JCJS part-time Cicero police officer at a starting pay of $20.59 per hour effective October 12th, 2020, budget code B3121PT.
I'll second that.
Second,
Judy
Ms. Blakey.
Boyke.
Discussion? Chief, it looks like you're depopulating the Camillus Police Department.
I'm trying.
You're trying. I noticed in the Liverpool picked up one of your former associates, and then you're picking up another one right here. So,
We're trying.
Do you have more over there to
Coach?
give?
I gotta be careful what I say online here.
Okay. So maybe some other departments would like to come over too, so that would be good. Further discussion on this item? Clerk will call the roll.
Council Boyke,
yes,
Council Carr,
Aye.
Council White,
yes,
Council Picallo,
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
Yes. Item is adopted. Number 5, the board approves the hiring of Cole K. Schambecker and Jonathan C. LaPera. I apologize if I mispronounced it, Jr., as recruit part-time police officers effective October 19th, 2020, whereas the town of Cicero Department is in need of a part-time police officer, and Mr. Schambecker and Mr. LaPerla have successfully passed through background investigation and was recommended for hire by the chief of police. Resolved that the town board approves the hiring of Cole K. Schambecker and Jonathan C. LaPera as part-time Cicero police officer recruit. Their starting pay of $20.59 per hour, effective October 19, 2020. These recruits will be starting the Phase 2 Police Academy on October 19th and are in the progression plan to replace full-timers as they leave next year. The October 19th Phase 2 class is the only one around Central New York at this time, so they need to be hired to attend.
I'll
Second,
that.
Counselor Picallo.
Okay. Discussion? Chief, my understanding is people can attend a police academy without being employed by a department.
That is not correct. You have to be hired. Do it Phase 1, you do not have to be hired. They put themselves through, but Phase 2, you do have to be on the payroll and hired by a police department to attend to become certified through Phase 2.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Speaking to the item I had before there on Mr. Edwards, what are we doing as far as possibly getting officers from another department? In other words, transfers, I think is the right possibility.
Well, we've been searching for part-timers along with numerous other agencies around New York State, and they're a few and far between. So we're fortunate enough to have Sean Edwards, who lives in Cicero, interested to work for us. And then we're lucky enough to run across a couple recruits, one who was a CNS graduate that wants to work with us and hopefully go full-time someday down the road. So other than that, we have nothing else in line right now. And there's probably 5 or 6 other agencies looking for full-time and part-time police officers right now, just in the central New York area.
Okay, because I noticed Mr. Edwards was a transfer from another department before he went to Camillus.
Yeah, that was probably 20 years ago. He left the sheriff's department and transferred to Camillus, and then he retired from Camillus. And now he wants to, keep his certification and work in the community where he lives.
Right. Well, I guess I was looking for is what's happening, if anything, as far as trying to get other transfers from other departments, maybe smaller agencies where they don't have the opportunity to grow in their career. What are we doing about trying to?
Well, we're reaching out to them, but everybody has different contracts, so on and so forth. So people know that we're going to be looking down the road in the future, and some people are interested and some people aren't. There is for newer recruits, if you're hired within the first 3 years, if the gaining agency should happen to pick up a police officer who has 3 years or less of certification, the losing agency could ask for reimbursement for training and so on and so forth from the gaining agency. And that has happened for other agencies in the past. So most agencies try to stay away from full-time police officers with less than 3 years on.
My understanding from talking to the comptroller that she was looking at it and she had some questions that you were going to have a difficult time making your payroll numbers for a budget this year before these 2 individuals were being considered. So what's your thought on that?
We went over this with the comptroller on Monday, and we're going to be fine between our regular pay and our part-time pay.
Okay, just so you know, I'm getting different information, so we'll have to check on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Elka, would you like to speak upon that?
Sure. I did analysis of the payroll year to date and then projecting it forward at our current levels. And I got, we were gonna like about squeak by being even with where we, at the level we are right now. 2 additional officers for the month of November and December, and an additional part-time person would probably put us over budget. But as we stand right now, we'll be under budget by about, I don't know, 25,000 or so.
Okay, but I'm also owed about $20,000 in my part-time line for Officer Freeman's hours that he's worked for other than police department. That's come out of my account.
That's true, plus the money for the court security that's come out of his overtime budget.
Yes.
Okay, how does that happen for the court security? That's,
It really should come out of the court security budget, but for whatever reason, it was being paid out of, because it's overtime when full-time officers work it.
right,
It's being, and we've had the, as you know, the conflict about the constables and everything.
correct.
So it's been coming out of the police overtime budget when in reality it should be charged to the court security line.
Mhm.
So that's something that needs to be addressed as well. I think the chief told me it's only about $4,000 because the courts have been shut down for most of the year. Although, as
Right.
you're aware, they're operating now.
Right.
So far, but also they asked us today, they have to, their annual training that we have to provide to them, that's gonna come out of our budget, that they're gonna be.
For the constables, that should be coming out of the court budget as well, though, really. That should be
Yes.
coming out of your budget. They're not your personnel.
Yes, but we're the ones who have to train them.
Okay, all right, now, how many folks are you looking to retire? 1, 2?
Next year, we have
I
one,
see 2 officers.
excuse me?
I see 2 officers that you're talking about for the academy, the phase 2 academy. So are you talking,
Yes.
losing 2 people next year?
Next year, we have Sergeant Baldini leaving at the beginning of the year, and Officer Aragano also planning on leaving next year. And I also have been working with the comptroller and the other board members about adding 2 additional police officers. And I understand the entire board has received that information, and I was going to talk about that in my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Also, we have one of our current part-time police officers, I believe, is going to be retiring soon as well. So his hours, whatever they are, will potentially be going to a new part-time officer making substantially less. Correct, Chief?
Mhm.
That's correct. We also did lose Officer Holman and Officer DeCrasto also this year. Although Officer Gray, I have not received any resignation letter yet. He says he's planning on retiring, but until I receive a letter
Right.
of resignation.
How long has he been with the department?
25 or 24 years.
About 25 years.
Okay, so there will be a substantial difference in hourly rate between him and one of the new hires then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion, questions?
No, not for me.
Elka, does that make sense?
That makes sense. Just remember when the officers retire, they cost about 22,000 a year in health insurance costs. So they may leave, but they are never gone.
We're working on that.
Okay, further discussion on this item?
So then Elka, you do not see any issue with payroll for the remainder of the year?
For the remainder of the year at the level that we are right now.
So then this question wasn't addressed still.
Which question?
The question that Bill asked, I know Counselor Carp had an answer for it with the budget lines. With those budget lines being corrected, that should solve the problem, correct?
How much are we talking about Officer Freeman to be charged? I mean,
About
I haven't seen any
20,000.
figures on those.
About 20,000, right, Chief? You're muted, Chief.
I think it's closer to 15, but whatever.
No, it's more than 15. The
neighborhood.
last email I sent was closer to 17.
Okay. So split the difference.
Yeah. Okay, so that's before these 2 people, right?
Right, but I just have to
We're not
point out
gonna
that,
We're not
We're
going to get the
adding-
money from the courts.
well, I mean, the overtime budget should be reimbursed, but I mean, just because we're hiring 3 part-time police officers doesn't mean that we're adding 3 more shifts. I mean, these are people are going to work when the work's available.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's
No,
not like
we're not talking, these are people that I'm reading here from the chiefs, that these are going to be available for full-time next year.
Sometime next
You're
year.
Correct.
Sometime next
When,
year.
yeah,
Okay.
correct, when we have the retirees. And then there is a significant cost savings there, certainly.
So
Would we be,
all the other ones move up, so. Okay.
would we be paying them,
I'm sorry, Elke, I can't hear you.
would we be paying them while they were in the academy? And then when they
Yes.
graduated, they would come on with us as full-time?
We have to pay them while they're in the academy, okay, which is about a month, and then they have to go into their field training, which will be the remainder of this year.
But we're getting value because in their field training, they're working as police officers alongside our officers, correct, Chief?
Yes, they're in uniform, and two people in the car, so if it's a two-car call, we may just be sending one car instead of two cars.
One second, guys. I apologize. Nicole, I don't know if you realize it, but you're not on mute and there's interference coming in. I apologize, Nicole. I'm sorry about that. Could you put yourself on mute?
Or Officer Freeman, could you mute her?
Yeah, it sounds like.
Thank you,
she's-
Nicole.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry
okay.
about that. Thank you so much.
Taken care of, thank you.
Okay, so my question is, so for a month, these are extra people being paid. And then after that month of the academy, they become like a shift kind of a thing. Is that right?
Once they graduate phase two, then they'll be assigned to a field training officer until they complete their mandated hours for New York State. And then they'll be able to go out on their own, but that takes time. That's, you know, at least minimum of 12 weeks, if not more, that they'll be riding in a car with somebody else.
So these will be paid extra over and above regular shifts. I guess I'm trying to find out for sure if we're gonna make that payroll or not. Because they're not going into shifts, right?
They'll be
After
assigned
phase two,
shifts,
they
but
are.
it'll be two-person cars instead of, you know, a one-person in the car. They'll be assigned to an FTO.
They're in addition to.
Yes. We have
They'll
to,
be working shifts along with the regular officers, correct, Chief?
yes, they're riding
Okay.
side by side with a field training officer.
Yes,
Right.
but I guess my point is, we're paying the person that's training them and we're paying them. They're not taking someone's shift over for them as a fill-in.
No,
Correct.
no,
So we have to,
not while on field training, you can't.
yeah, these are over and above what we're paying to the end of the year at this point.
Yes, they're extra people.
Okay.
And like I said, there's no other academies going on right now other than ours.
Yes, no, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on the pay part.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Blakey,
Yes.
Counselor Carr,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes,
Counselor DeColo,
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
No. Item is adopted. Chief, you're up next for the next item, 6.
All right, hello, everyone. As many of you know, it's my past practice to meet with board members one-on-one prior to submitting my police budget worksheet, to answer any questions, etc. After submitting my original budget worksheet, I noted that on the tentative budget that was discussed at the last board meeting, that some items has been moved around, specifically added to my budget from other budget lines. Since then, I've met with each board member again to go over my budget. And I also met this past Monday afternoon with our comptroller for clarification on the amended police budget that was submitted at the last board meeting. Most of my questions have been answered, to include adding the much needed 2 additional new police officer hires, which will increase the cost of the police services from $199 for a $150,000 household to $209 for a $150,000 home. I'd like to thank Alka for this help in the last week or so. And I'll field any questions on that, but I've talked with most of the board members regarding my budget. So I'm open for questions.
Question?
Well, I have a couple questions, Chief, but I don't know if they should be addressed to you or to whoever added money to your budget. I mean, I'm a little bit, the legal line, I think, is a little bit confusing to me. Let me flip to, apologize for not having it open.
E312045.
The 45,000, John, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we've got way back in the beginning in the fund, in the A fund, we have union negotiation, 45,000 budgeted for under line A142041. You know, and also employment, which I don't know if I guess I'm not sure because we haven't had a legal budget in the police budget in the past. if there's some overlap or if we're anticipating $45,000 for legal expenditures related solely to the PD next year. I'm assuming this is one of those items that you did not add to your budget, Chief?
I did not add this to my budget line. I didn't see it until I saw the tentative budget line. I did note that in 2021, in the A lines, there's $198,000 in that for attorney fees in that line.
Yeah, and some of that's for our town attorney, you know, I'm assuming attending meetings and everything, and we have litigation, but I guess whoever did add that 45,000, can we have some clarification on whether there's any overlap?
I added it as the chief fiscal officer. It's my responsibility to come up with the numbers for the tentative budget.
Right.
You know, there's only one section of town government that has 207C employees. So that does not apply to all the other parts. So as in my mind, a very distinct expense that is very specific to this one operation. So rather than having it, I'm going to call in another part, and for transparency, it's the most appropriate section of the budget.
So, okay, and I understand the 207C is a concern, as we do have two individuals on 207C right now. So you're anticipating $45,000 in legal expenses related to those two individuals?
I don't know exactly what it is, so I had to come up with an estimate, just like all the other lines in the budget are estimates.
What was okay, and I understand as the CFO, that's your job. What was the basis for estimating 45,000, I suppose is my question then.
Based on what I've seen for experience of that billing that's in that area.
Okay. All right. I guess turning back to the chief though, since we do, what other items were added to your budget that have not previously been in the police budget? Because what I'm seeing here, to someone who's not someone who isn't really familiar or hasn't really looked at all the individual lines, is a pretty massive increase from the current budget of 1.7 and change million for 2020 to a proposed budget of north of 2 million. I guess, would it be fair to say, Chief, that if you compare 2020 and 2021, it's not an apples to apples comparison because of these items that were not previously in the police budget? Is that fair to say that?
That's fair to say that, yes.
Okay. All right. I caution anybody, obviously all of those of us here who have spoken to the chief are aware of that. Anybody, the member of the public that happen to want to take time on a Wednesday night to look this over or listen, it's an apples to oranges comparison. It looks like a much larger increase than it really is, I guess is what I would say. So what other items have been added, Chief?
The building repairs as well for 50,000.
The building repairs used to be on an A line and has now been added to my budget since it is the police building. And I understand that the comptroller felt that it's a police building, it should be assigned to the police budget.
And
then,
I don't think that's an unfair position. It's just, we need to keep in mind when looking at the budget, the increase that was not previously there, but there's certainly logic to that position.
yes.
It's not unreasonable.
When we,
Mrs. Boyke, just one moment. Jonathan, if you look at other sections from last year to this, in my humble opinion, I was a little baffled that in the last year's budget, there was over $165,000 still in the section that the town clerk is responsible for in the building that was still there for the highway department.
That's
Meeting,
now that
we
you mention that,
moved
that is
over
pretty
money. We moved over money, and actually a resident brought that to our attention. I knew it was there for the paving. So
Mhm.
we still had money for the lunchroom of the highway department in that budget rather than, in my mind, the lunchroom budget should be in the highway department.
I completely agree with you on that. And
We've been
again,
trying to clean up.
Yep.
We've been trying to clean up a few of those areas and to make it so that frankly, not just for us, but for the residents, when they see the budget, they don't see things like money for the highway department, that's not in the highway department. This is
I
just one-
don't disagree with you all. Like I said, it makes perfect sense to put it in there. My only, like I was just saying the caveat that it makes the increase in the police budget look a little bit more than it is because that money was being spent elsewhere for the police building. But no, I agree. It's highway building stuff should be in highway. Police building stuff should be in police. I agree with you about that.
There'll be other items.
easier to
There'll be other
understand.
items this evening that we're trying to get the items in the right column as well.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. I guess I made my position clear. well, just adding the asterisk about the increase in budget, that's all. So
Okay, thank you.
I'm good, Chief.
If you're all set, Jonathan, Judy, I think is next.
I am.
That was just going to be my comment that obviously when our town hall is no longer a town hall community, so to speak, so we have separate buildings. So it would make sense that each building would be responsible for their repairs or whatever, and would show up under their budget. That way, I believe is specified. It doesn't change the bottom line of our budget because we're still responsible. It just shows where the money is being directed. That was my only comment.
Right, we're trying to do the same thing with the parks, like the senior center like that. If there are items that we can clearly differentiate, then we're trying to do that, so.
Agreed.
I apologize, Chief, I think I interrupted you. Please continue.
No, that was it, unless somebody else, any other questions. Retro pay was also added in there. That wasn't in there in my original worksheet also. And that really has nothing to do prior to me coming on board, or the majority of the board right now also. That's from prior contracts that seem to have failed.
I did have one question that was for Chief and the board. The line item for training. I just been noticing it's been very low for a long time. And that's of course me, right? Me saying something like that. If the 45,000 that was put in for legal, I'd love to see if we could at least put 5,000 into training and really make sure our police officers got proper training, or at least better training than what they're getting now. They do a fantastic job for us, and just giving them more training, I think, would be something that they would all be very appreciative of. Chief, any thoughts on that?
Well, that would clearly be helpful in reducing some liability to the police department in the town. There is going to be some mandated training coming up here in the future. De-escalation, implicit bias training, less than lethal, body worn camera in-service training. We do qualify twice a year now compared to once a year prior to me taking over. And then there's a lot more training coming down the road that we could use that funding towards to assist when reducing liability. I strongly believe that training reduces liability, and it will be beneficial to the men and women of the Cicero Police Department.
I think in every single department, we're going to have items that we agree and disagree upon. One item that the chief and I had 100% agreement on was the training area, Mike, and encouraging more, not just more training, but if we can get, I'm going to call up-to-date training based on the environment we're dealing with now, I'm highly encouraging that. Another item, Chief, if you'd like to share, I noticed I did not see in the budget a specific note, and you did not mention it, as far as cameras, body cameras and cameras on vehicles. Would you like to elaborate on that?
I believe Councilman Cart might be talking about.
Oh, yeah, I did email something, and I apologize, Mr. Supervisor, for emailing it late. I was in court in Auburn all afternoon. I did send an email that we, I was going to save it for the discussion, that we did reach an agreement with the PBA on body worn cameras. We have agreed on a policy. That is something that we are going to be looking to implement. I'll be talking about introducing a resolution later on the purchase order. The ongoing cost, I think you told me, Chief, is around $1,850 a year. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Yes,
that is
after the initial purchase.
Right, now that we have an agreement on that, and I think that we can all agree that body worn cameras are, a net positive for everybody, and I can talk about that more later. That is something also that would need to be added, I think, to the cameras line. As far as dash cams, I know you're looking for a grant for those, correct, Chief?
Yeah, I sent a letter probably 6 months ago to Assemblyman Sturpey, but with the elections going on, and with COVID-19, things are kind of on hold right now. I'm hoping that down the road, we'll be able to put in-car cameras in our cars also. Again, I believe that in-car cameras and body worn cameras reduce liability to the police officers and the town. And the majority of the police officers want, I would say almost 99.9% of the police officers are asking for body worn cameras to protect themselves and also, the police department in the town of Cicero.
And just also, just for everybody's edification, we do not need to negotiate with the PBA about the dash cams, only about the body cameras.
Just body
We will
cameras.
not- we will not have to
In-car
go through that
cameras
process
are not
again.
negotiable.
That's correct, because they're not worn on the body.
Sure.
Okay, Chief, could you elaborate a little bit on what you're looking to do or what you have done as far as trying to control cost in the department? We're basically seeing a situation now where the budget is going up about, well, double digits every year. So
Well,
what's
my original,
happening to try to,
my
I'm sorry.
original worksheet was 5%. And that was lower than last year. And then with these switches that were made, it obviously went up. So we're status quo. I'll be honest with you, we are understaffed. We're struggling with meeting some of the state mandates regarding discovery and bail reform. And that's why I'm asking the board to consider hiring 2 additional police officers, brand new, tier 6 retirement. The numbers, the whole board's been received the numbers. I've already stated what the cost would be. An additional $10 per $150,000 home for 2 police officers. One will be a dedicated traffic car and quality life car for the town of Cicero, and the other would be a criminal investigator to help out with felony complaints and misdemeanor complaints. And that will free up Officer Freeman also to help with our New York State mandated discovery and bail reform mandates that he has been working on, and we are falling behind on.
I guess I should point out also that, you know, in the line, along with that discovery, there will be some additional overhead for the police department, because obviously body worn camera footage and dash cam footage, once we have those, will be part of the mandatory discovery. Is that correct, Chief?
It is, and we also have certain specific timelines that we have to get information, whether it's body worn camera or reports or booking videos or paperwork to the district attorney's office, and we're just not getting it there right now.
Chief, you know, I told you this, but I'll say it for the record. You know, when it comes to hiring the new police officers, new positions, I'm a bit reticent, but I told you, and I told the rest of the board, it's something that I would be prepared to agree to, but not under the current contract. That would only be once we have a new contract in place. The negotiations are ongoing. I think we're very close. I think it's going to provide substantial cost savings for the town, but I would not support hiring any more police officers or creating any new positions other than replacing police officers that retire under this current contract. It's not, it's just not tenable long-term.
Understand, that's what we agreed on with the board members also, that they would be hired after the new contract.
Okay.
because right now, if you look at the historical numbers, Chief, we're basically looking at a 10% per year. If you look at 2016 to 2020, we're looking at a 50% increase. That's 10% a year. And basically, I don't know too many residents of the town of Cicero who are getting 10% a year in their pay year after year. So we need to, across the board, every department, we need to be talking about how we can reinvent ourselves and be more efficient, still do our job, but we have to do more to control costs.
And we have been doing a great job of controlling costs with the police department, especially this year. And there's the need. I would not be asking for 2 police officers if there was not the need for public safety reasons in the town of Cicero.
Chief, it's Mike. When we met last week, what was that? I don't have it at the top of my head, but you said there was a national guidance that said you're supposed to have one police officer, per 1,000, correct?
Yes, the national average is 1 police officer per 1,000 population. And right now we're running with 16 police officers for approximately 31,000 population. I welcome anyone who's watching or who wants to go to our website. Not only is our police survey there, but also a graph which shows calls for service, staffing, population with the town of Cicero compared to Camillus, Geddes, DeWitt, and Manlius. And they're running with, if not twice, 3 times as many police officers, and we're handling the same amount of calls for service.
There's no question that our officers do more with less. There's no question about that at all.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And the best thing to do is to, and I'm 100% in agreement with you, Counselor Carp. The best thing to do when you have people that are being worked quite hard is we need to get them support. And that's why I go back to the line item I also mentioned before. We didn't talk any numbers on it. Was that training line item. We have to get our police officers more training. We have to. And I'm just asking for 3,000, just 3,000, 2,500, just to get us to 10. That would be great. And if we could all agree to that, that'd be just moving, not adding anything, but moving numbers from that 45,000 from legal, just adding a little bit, 2,500 from that 45,000, moving it for training. That would be fantastic, I think, for the whole town of Cicero.
I would have no objection as long as, the chief can, could be spent on something that's worthwhile. I'm sure he can, like you said, the implicit bias training, the other things, the less lethal training is, as long as the money can be well spent, I certainly would have no objection to that.
I didn't hear questions from Judy and Nancy, so I want to make sure I don't pass over you. So ladies.
Well, I was just going to say that when it comes to cost, I'm sure that the residents of the town, for safety, particularly under the circumstances of what a lot of the residents are going through right now with various incidents within the town, that $10 increase is certainly not a lot of money for safety, my safety anyway. And also that the 2 or 3 different categories that have been shifted into being shifted around in other budgets, not only the police department, but others within the departments, that when it comes to the bottom line, it's the bottom line. So I think as long as we hold the line, and we can hold the line everywhere, safety comes first. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy.
Most of my questions have been answered,
Okay, thank you.
which is great. But I would encourage anyone watching or whoever watches this later on to look at those statistics that the chief was talking about. How many people we have in our town, how many officers. We only have approximately 2 officers on per shift. And that just amazes me that they can get anything done. It's tough in this year. COVID has really kicked everyone's budgets. But it's something you're gonna have to weigh, whether or not this is important enough and whether people really think they need it.
Well said,
In the
Nancy.
middle-
I agree with you. I agree with you. Well said. Another thing is, I don't know if other board members have looked, but I was lucky enough to, be talking with Chief in his office. He has a huge binder, and I mean thick, just from this year, I believe, from traffic complaints. And it's just like, it's tough because I don't even think we're keeping up with that. Of course, Councilor White mentioned a few minutes ago about the numbers of police we have on at a certain time. As accurate as it is, I'm always like, I don't want people to know that outside, because it's like, oh, this is one of those, obviously, yes, it needs to be said. It's just, I drive through other towns and their police presence is fairly high, and you feel very safe. I've been contacted, and that's why I appreciate Councilor White and her comments earlier. I have been contacted by my neighbors. My neighbors have said safety, public safety is paramount. So I just want to make sure, and I hope that they're reaching out to other town board members or supervisors or counselors as well. Paramount is what I've been hearing.
The surveys that we've received back so far, and unfortunately, they can just come back to one database right now that Officer Freeman's handling. 90, if not higher percent, are traffic complaints and patrols in the neighborhoods. It's cut and dry, it's in black and white.
Chief, really briefly, you mentioned something, that you had shared I'm just asking something for the record, what it would cost to add these 2 new officers. Can you tell us what the number is so that we can be prepared, to see about adding that to the budget?
All right, let's see. 2 new officers approximately with total benefits and everything. The sheet we have is 75,000. We came up with 71,000
A piece?
per officer. That's
142.
what, excuse me?
So 142.
Yeah, or 150.
Across all the lines.
If you want to go high,
To 250. Okay.
yeah, it'd be 150,000 for 2 police officers. That's total benefits, retirement, medical, so on and so forth. And then the 2 new police officers that we're looking at will be tier 6 retirement, and at least currently, they're not married. So they'll be coming in at a substantially low health insurance premium. So we're talking, like I'd mentioned, for a home that's worth $150,000 right now, or for my 2021 budget as presented tonight, is $199.11. With 2 police officers added to that budget, is $209.36 for a $150,000 home in the town of Cicero.
I guess there's just one other thing I'd like to point out. This budget includes retro pay, and the number might be a little bit small. That's because this department has not had an on-time contract since, I believe, 2005. We're currently way past it. This contract being, we're currently way past where this contract should have been negotiated. It is, we're not going to have to pay retroactive pay in the future. It's my intent that after we settle this contract, to immediately begin working on the next contract. So the next contract can be on time, and we're not spending any money on retroactive pay, because that's, while it is money that would be paid anyway, it's a lot easier to plan. It's a lot easier to plan for not having retroactive pay if you actually do your job and get the contract done. It's unfortunate that in years past, the negotiating committees were unable to come up with one. I'm not going to voice my opinion further about that right now, about some of the demands that were made, but we are negotiating in good faith. We are going to settle this contract, I believe, very soon. We will have retro pay because of the delays with it, but I do not believe we will have it in the future, because I intend to negotiate an on-time contract for starting in 2022.
And I'd like to mention also, Mr. Carp, too, is with COVID-19 and with the way things have been going this year, we've really only negotiated really 4 hours. We've had 2
In person, yes, but I spent a considerable amount of time on the phone.
Gentlemen, members of the board, I caution you that we are
That's fine.
conversations, and I don't want to go over any lines here.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I just wanted to point out that the 150,000 in retro pay will not be necessary in future years. So that's not
I understand.
an ongoing expense.
I understand what you're saying. Okay, further questions?
Yep, before we move on, Bill, I appreciate.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mike, excuse me. On that number you gave, Chief, with those officers, I'm making a speculation here, especially on the traffic person, would that be a Monday through Friday type thing? I mean, you're not doing traffic at, 11 to 7.
No, I have to follow the contract right now and try to work out an agreement. If there's complaints in the evenings, I'd like to schedule adjust them, but I'm not there yet. Right now, they'd be on the 4 and 2 schedule, same as the regular patrol.
Okay, what about if they're on training? Would there be a part-time officer assigned to fill in when they're on training or vacation or things like that?
It could be. I haven't put thought to that right now. I'm just working on trying to get the position, but yeah, I mean, they may be. Now, talking about this traffic car also, they're also going to be responsible for moving the traffic signs around town that Officer Freeman's now doing too, to free him up. So it's not just, going out and writing tickets. There's going to be an educational aspect of this traffic.
No, I understand, but I'm just trying to understand it. And my understanding is a regular patrol officer, using that term loosely, if that officer is off for training, vacation, or whatever, then you pick up a
This would not have to be
to fill in. So,
This would not
Right.
have to be filled, no.
pardon me?
I would not have to pay overtime to fill the traffic car if he's sick or something like that, if that's what you're asking.
Right. I'm just asking, would you pick up a part-timer to fill in with that for
I
whatever
could,
reason?
but there's nothing that says I would have to.
Okay.
So it would not be mandatory to fill that shift. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
good question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the chief? If not, we'll,
I had one
Mike.
more, not for the
Yep,
chief.
go ahead.
It was for the board. Just back on, I did hear an answer from Counselor Carp on moving 2,500 from that 45 line from legal to training. Counselor Boyke, any thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm all for it. Obviously, training is important. And I would have thought, though, that anytime training is available and necessary, that we would obviously have the money to pay for it. So, yeah, I mean, 10,000 is great. And if we needed more, we'd find more, just like we always have.
I appreciate that patch you're wearing, Judy,
Oh, like my pets,
the pink patch.
I'm temporary tonight.
Counselor White, any thoughts on that as well?
I would assume that if we don't put 10,000 in training and there's 45,000 in the other line and the other line doesn't get used, we can always transfer that money also. Is that true?
Yeah, we do that on a regular basis for lines. I mean, it's literally every meeting basis, and especially this time of year.
It's a budget modification, right?
Exactly. Well, generally within a department, it's pretty easy. So
Right.
we make it happen, not even requiring a budget mod. We can, within a department, it's a pretty easy item.
So it's possible that we can even have more for that training towards the end of next year, or, say July comes and that 45,000 hasn't been touched.
Oh,
Sure.
that was my,
I do have to admit that 7,500 is still well under what other police departments have in their training budget. So maybe for insurance purposes or whatever, I don't know. If it shows that we have additional funding in our training budget, it may be helpful also.
If we get lucky like last year, and get a reasonable or light winter, we'll be able to make a whole lot of other modifications, and like we did for paving this year, when we get a fortunate year. And the same thing would happen for the police. Lighter year, hopefully that means fewer accidents and opportunities for us. So
I appreciate everyone's input on that. It's just crazy. I look back a couple of years ago, $1,000 for training. That's just, it's unconscionable to me. This doesn't make sense. So the conversation's been great. I appreciate it. I'm good. I'm good.
thank you. Thank you. If you're all set, Chief, we'll let you go back to your family and to work, and we'll have the assessor come up next. Thank you. Karen,
Hello.
sorry I missed you. I apologize for not getting you on the initial introduction. So there you are.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Well, everything's been going great in my office. We have, my clerk's been working extra hard due to COVID. We've been making appointments with the senior low exemptions and the disabled, and they've been making appointments, running out to the cars, bringing the people in, but it's been working really good. So we've collected almost 200 applications out of 800. So everything's going smooth on that side. We're still going to continue. I'm still going to continue to maintain 100% this year. Working on that. But as far as the budget goes, I just have the normal increases just under my personal, which is the payroll. I have the normal yearly, annually increase. And then my one part-time is going from $13.50 to $15 an hour. That's the bigger increase than the annual, because we're bringing all the part-timers up to $15 an hour. But that's it. She only works 1,040 hours a year. So it's about $1,000 increase. And then I have a $500 increase under my contractual, which is in 2019, I decreased my contractual 15,000, but I kind of underestimated it. So I need an extra 500 in there for training and stuff. So, and that'll be fine, but that's it.
If I may interject, Karen, this was a discussion that I had with all the departments on the, I'm going to call it job entry positions. For example, in your office, we're having a very pronounced competitive problem in hiring those folks, whether it's lifeguards or folks in the assessor's office. We're doing a great job of training these people. They with us, and then they're gone to another town.
Yep.
And we're competing not just with McDonald's, whatever, but Target and everybody up and down the street. I mean,
Yep. Dunkin' Donuts is paying $15.50 now.
right. So we're losing people. We're getting, like I said, we're training people and then turning them over. So
Yep. And my other clerk's just hitting
Challenge.
15 with her increase, so she'll be at 15.
okay,
at
so I
15.
apologize for interrupting, but I just wanted to interject that for the board.
Okay. I don't have any questions.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Nancy?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions, Karen, I guess you're,
I also have nothing at this time, Bill.
okay.
Okay.
You're so shy, Mike. I'm just used to having a call.
Trying to have manners this time around.
Okay, that being said, go to the next page. Moving around, and if it's okay with the board, I'm going to kind of do two at once, if it's okay with you, as far as changes around here.
It's rare, Bill, when they have to say it, but I'll allow it, right?
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
welcome.
your support.
Thank you.
If you notice on the recommendations I had for all five of us for no pay increase for the 2021 budget. If I start with the town board side, the contractual, if you note from the previous years, we were in the $27,000 area, and it went to 45 for 2020. I moved that back to 25 with the idea that it puts us, back to what we have been spending. I don't know what the full logic was for the increase to the 45. Some of the major items where that money was spent this year, almost $15,000 was spent in that item this year for BAN's bonding activity that was done. Advertising for the parks and comptroller position. We had $3,500 for Diane Browning. Association of Towns meeting. So those were some of the major items. It looks like, I hope we're not going to keep spending in all those areas to that amount. So there was a reduction of, it looks like a big percentage, 44, but it was really the 45 to 25 in that area. So if there are no further, if anybody has any questions, I can get into more detail about that. Okay.
Nope.
Okay, on the other side, on the supervisor's budget, as you can see, we made some adjustments on the contractual. Mostly that was supplies. The one item that was an increase was for the supervisor's secretary, which was $17.98 per hour. And I adjusted that to $21 per hour for two major reasons. Besides, she's doing a great job. The first item was due to the report from the state comptroller. They have basically dictated that we come up with more documentation and detail for the all our purchasing. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, we now have a very detailed PO process where we get all those documents with all the budget codes, state purchasing codes, county purchasing codes. So I think we've made great strides in that, and frankly, it's been a great deal of work for her. The second item is, I'm sure you know, we no longer have the senior advocate and the veterans counselor. So those positions we don't have. Now, the residents are still looking for those services. So basically that means me and Jolie that are picking up the slack. So that's an adjustment to, again, no pay for me, but at least that gets some additional compensation for the supervisor secretary. So those are the two main items. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy.
No, thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay,
That's good.
thank you. Did those. Okay. Town clerk, Tracy?
Yeah, thank you.
Can't hear her.
She doesn't have the mic. She has to get the mic over to her. She'll be right there.
Okay.
It's like the old radio play-by-play.
Exactly.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
How are you now?
Okay.
Echoey, but it'll work.
Okay.
All right. thank you.
Enough.
I reached out to all of the board members by email and by phone to give them, I also gave an itemized list of everything for the 2021 proposed town clerk budget. I would like to also just mention before I get into my budget that the town clerk's office is working extremely hard through this COVID. Since March, we have done all of the services above and beyond. We have actually from August till present, waited on over 550 customers. And actually 18,410 was in one of it. A lot of it is lifetime licenses. So it was like 550 customers, over 1,914 dogs. That was over 14,000. And we actually brought into the town over 21,000 through this COVID, 47,000 total, but 21,000 was to the town because we also have a lot of state mandates that we have to go by. We did 104 marriages doing COVID, walking outside. We have an excellent, just extremely working hard. We have an excellent system that we are pretty proud of, that we have been working with to assist everybody with all the services that the town clerk's office provides. I just wanted to make mention of that. The actual, like I said, I itemized on a paper every category, and I actually broke it all down with everything that comes out of that budget, and I actually put in there the contracts with the amounts that we pay when they are up, and it's pretty itemized. That's why I wanted to go over, our dog control, our everything is all inside of there. You will see that the budget did not increase much. And then the building, of course, went down. It was 312,000 last year and only 149 this year due to the fact that, as you guys were discussing previously in the meeting, the police building, of course, that's not on site, and the highway department are not in the A code. I would like to point out that in the building, under contractual, there are some things that you have to look at in the future for this town hall. I did get an estimate, and we need to actually look at that. It does need a town hall roof. We do need to do the parking lot after all of the demolition and all of the old highway department is done. We do need to look at this parking lot being slurred and being sealed properly. And it does not include any heating or air conditioning or any renovations that are needed for this town hall. None of that is included in this building contractual. So I did want to just, for the record, make mention of that. Is there any questions that you may have for me that I can assist you with?
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything. I'm just glad to hear that you made mention of the obvious building repairs where the remainder of our offices are. And it's obvious that we're going to need a roof. We're going to need a roof. So, but other than that, I'm fine. Looks good. And congratulations on, because I've been there when the bell is rang and Gretchen is standing out in the parking lot working with people. So you guys done a great job. We have a lot of happy fishermen and married people.
Tracy and frankly, all the other folks in town hall have been rather modest when they've been telling how they've been modifying things here. I mean, they are literally reinventing their offices, not just since the supposed 2-week shutdown, but they're modifying it daily. I mean, because the activities in the building literally change daily. And so they have to change how they do business on a daily basis. So thanks to Wayne, we've been handling the moving computers around, moving printers around, how they're operating. They're doing a fantastic job. We've had great cooperation working with the judges to make that happen. So we're literally reinventing ourselves every day. So they've been doing a great job. So one of the next part that's coming up that is part of the building, but is a little different section of the budget, is the addressing some of the COVID things. We frankly are working off of a guess. I think we put in like $20,000 in a line for COVID. We have no idea what the governor's going to come down with mandates, but we anticipate there's going to be something. So we put in a number, so at least we have a starting point. So we'll go from there. So Again, Tracy doing a great job. Questions from any of the board members?
Nope. Thank you, Ms. Castleman.
Okay,
Thank you. I'm good.
thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Meyer. I would like to mention that my young supervisor did an excellent job and also our part-time seasonal. They did an excellent job through all of this. It is extremely, like the supervisor said, challenging on a day-to-day basis. And I think you've done an excellent job for all the services that we provide residents in the town of Cicero, and I am very proud of them. Thank you so much.
Okay, and the discussion part, if you all remember, not too long ago, we had a presentation, pre-COVID, it seems like a long time ago, SMTC on the Route 11 study. The final report is now on their website. So if any of you would like to take a look at it, it's obviously I'm going to call a planning document, a what-if document. So that's out there so that when future projects come down, we don't have to reinvent the wheel as far as traffic numbers and trying to imagine things. So if any of you or the residents are interested in that, please go to the SMT site. And, it's kind of interesting, creative work they did. So thank you very much to them. Next item, I'm sure you've seen articles in the paper that the governor's put out concerning coronavirus. And let me just read a few lines out of one of his later releases. Stamping out mass gatherings will be a priority, says the governor, followed by enforcement of businesses and then individuals. Cuomo has been calling for local officials to do more enforcement of coronavirus rules for weeks. And as the governor says, everybody knows the rules. Too many local governments are not doing enforcement. So he's saying it's not a public education item, it's a enforcement item. So that being said, I'm sure most of you have noticed the city of Syracuse is no longer having their Christmas tree events. They're doing the lights, but they're not having the events because of the people gathering. So following the governor's direction, the Parks Department is not having the Christmas tree celebrations as previously have held because they don't follow the governor's guidelines. However, that being said, the Parks Department is doing a great job, and I've started discussions with them today that they are coming up with other plans on how to have proper spirit of the community for this time of year. And so they're going to come up with alternate ways to celebrate in the holiday season. So we can look forward to their information coming up. Next item, I'm sure those who follow the board meetings know that Councilor Boykin and I have had numerous comments on solar projects. It's an item that we both have a great deal of interest in, and applicants are coming to the town. And so Councilor Boykin and I have had discussions about that, and I think Judy would like to add a few comments. Judy?
Yes, thank you. As we all know, New York State renewable energy is being pushed. But we in the town of Cicero, like other towns, haven't had any restrictions or in our comprehensive plan actually looked at the appropriate places to be erecting these type of facilities. We have had several applications, and right now we do have a new application as we speak tonight while we're sitting here. The planning board is entertaining a new one, which is on McKinley Road. And they're looking for a subdivision. First, it's the Whitaker Corporation. But with that said, the town of Clay had entertained solar in the beginning, but then realized that it can impose on several residential areas. So I had sent out some information, I believe, to the counselors a few weeks back to look at. And I believe that we truly need to entertain two things. One is to impose a moratorium for at least a year to basically get ourselves together so that we are able to identify appropriate areas for this type of a facility, and which Town of Clay has already done. And also, we need to pass a resolution. It's called an opt-out. And the opt-out is so that we are not going to be a town that doesn't receive taxes. The opt-out part of it says that, you know, we will consider solar, but we're not waiving the taxes on it. Mainly, these sites are funded by our federal government or our state government. And the sites go on to property that is leased. It is not bought. And the key part of that is maintaining mowing or whatever it is to maintain the property after they're installed. But the major is the decomposition of them, because if they are abandoned, they need to be torn down. And the company that puts them up needs to be held responsible, because the solar panels right now are not recyclable. So there's a lot of what ifs out there, and the town of Cicero needs to be ahead of the game. So I'd like to pursue this with all of you in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Just as a heads up, we'll be having very shortly, probably at the next meeting, the items that Judy and I are talking about. And just for your information, there was a previous project that will be coming to us, and I'm not going to use the correct term, so if I use it, please correct me, on I'm going to call it decommissioning.
Yes,
And so that we can expect very soon. So it's not hypothetical.
it's there, it's out there, definitely.
Right.
Thank you.
right. So we'll be working on that and get back to you for the next meeting.
I believe that they're,
Items from the board.
putting in most of those contracts, some sort of bonding for the decommissioning of these units after their shelf life.
Yes, they are, but the contract is at like a 25 to 30 year. And I would be willing to guess that in 25 years, solar is going to be like an old cell phone. It's going to be worthless. So just making sure though that that's a bigger portion of it, but the other part of it is where they are being placed. I think that that's more of a protective area for the residents of the town. And that's one of the purpose, so that we need to, as a town like Clay, have areas designated so we know that they're just not going to be able to plop them, you know, in the middle of a residential development. So that's the purpose of it.
One of the other challenges, Judy, I'm sure you agree, is how are we going to anticipate what it's going to cost 25 years down the road as far as what the decommissioning costs are?
Exactly.
And
That's the part.
it's a bond is a bond, but only if the company can maintain a bond.
Mhm.
They may be able to qualify for a bond this year, but that doesn't mean they qualify to maintain that bond. 5 years from now, their financial situation may or may not be the same, and they may not be able to maintain their bond.
Well, exactly. They get their money and they step away.
Right,
So-
right. So we're not used to a decreasing asset. And so it's something we're gonna have to talk about. So that being said, further items from the board?
Nancy, did you have something?
Not really. There is a webinar coming up on the 15th about solar farms in New York State, if you want to look into that.
I can forward them. I get one every day.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah, if you
day.
could forward that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be
We
good.
have a lot of information too. I just took a couple courses on it, and yeah, Judy's right. They should designate brown land for that, you know, not waste good land that we could collect taxes on to do that.
I agree.
Well, if
100%
you,
agree.
right, if we implement the opt-out,
Mhm.
the opt-out will cover us for our taxes. That's the main thing. And then designating the areas after that, brownfields and landfills and stuff like that. But the key to that is, one of the key things is that they have to have what's called the phase 1 power line. And
Mhm.
that's one of the issues that we have at the landfill in Cicero right now, because that phase 1 power line is on Route 31. And to run it to the landfill, it's pretty close to a half a mile. That's very costly. So those are the other parts of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can still do a pilot even though you opt out, but
Yeah, well, but
if you
we're gonna
wanted
get
to.
money. We need to get money.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we all set?
I have an
did-
item.
Oh, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead, John.
So as I mentioned earlier, we were able to reach an agreement with the PBA. It's the Cicero Police Union on body worn camera policy. It's something we've been working on for a while. I tried a couple of years ago at a meeting with our attorney supervisor, then Supervisor Vaneski, then Chief Snell with the PBA. We were unable to reach an agreement on it. It's a mandatorily negotiable item because it's worn on the police officer's person. I actually brought up in the context of the contract negotiations to our union is a member of a union of unions, essentially, to that union president, Mr. Salfaro, in May, that I wanted to perhaps detach the body worn camera issue from the contract negotiations, get it moved along quicker. And then we all know about the tragic death of George Floyd, and then the issues that arose subsequent to that. I started really pressing on that. There was a lot of back and forth. We were able to come to an agreement on that. I'd like to thank Chief Fortuno for his assistance, also Officer Aragano, who's the PBA president, for his working with me on it. I think that we all know that body worn cameras are a good idea. They're a win for everybody. They're a win for the town because they protect us from potential liability. They're a win from the officer because it allows them to protect themselves and also could potentially save them from a career-ending false accusation. It enhances public safety because it provides a video record of potential criminal activity. You know, if you have a DWI arrest or DWI drugs where a breathalyzer doesn't work, you know, the body worn camera would record the person slurring their words or stumbling and make it that much easier to secure a conviction. Also, they can potentially record admissions that people made. So it makes convictions of people who commit crimes easier. And it helps citizens too, because they know that their rights will be protected when they're interacting with police officers because the entire interaction is recorded. And so this is, like I said, it's a win for everybody. It's something that we can't afford not to do. I think it will be a key part of the police reform that we've all been talking about and hearing about. So with that in mind, you know, the chief did put together we have a price quote from a vendor. It's a vendor that the chief recommends, he's familiar with from his work at other police agencies. So I would like, and then I know there'll probably be some discussion, I'd like to put forth the following resolution.
I have a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is this a part of what you're saying was a discussion with the PBA, or is this an item that was agreed that was not part of the discussion?
This is, I'm not sure I understand. This is going to be a separate, this will be incorporated into the new contract with an MOU. It arose from the contract negotiations, but in light of everything that's been going on with policing around the country, we detached it and fast-tracked it. Part of the reason for that is the chief tells me that the body camera manufacturers tell him you're looking at least 6 to 8 weeks between ordering and actually receiving the product. I think this is something that is of urgent need for our department. And so we wanted to be able to get the deal put together and the order placed as soon as possible because of that lead time. I would like to have them before the end of the year, and I don't know if that'll be possible.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure what you just said. It is or is not part of the discussions in the contract?
It was, and then we moved it into a separate discussion, something that we could complete before even the contract was completed. So,
Okay, so it's not part of the contract negotiations.
No, it was a separate we broke it off and turned into a separate negotiation because we could get that done quicker while we were working on the rest of the contract. Am I not, does anyone else, I mean, I feel like I'm explaining this, if I'm not.
Well, I'm hearing that it's part of the contract conversation.
It was, yes, because it's a negotiable item.
Okay, I think that's out of order as far as that item.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean.
Okay.
I believe that he means that is because you are negotiating it, that it wouldn't be something that we should be moving on at this time because it's part of negotiation. That's my understanding, what I'm hearing. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm hearing.
Well, no, but I understand that, but it has turned into a separate negotiation from the contract. It is something that we will be executing an MOU.
Okay, but when you're using the term negotiations, that's what I'm having a question about.
Well, the negotiations are concluded. We've reached an agreement.
We went down
Okay,
this road
that's a new item. You didn't say that.
I'm sorry, I thought it was, and I'm not trying to be, perhaps I wasn't clear. Yeah, it's the negotiations on this issue are concluded. I said we have an agreement. There are no more negotiations on the body worn cameras. The agreement is, we have an agreement on it. And I would like to move forward with authorizing a purchase order. I've discussed this with the rest of the board. I emailed you about it. I know it was late. I don't know if you had a chance to review it.
Okay.
So there's no reason why we can't move forward with this now.
I understand what you're saying, and that's what I have the exception. I do not believe that under the circumstances, that's a proper situation that you as a member of the town board can negotiate.
I'm sorry. Why do you say that?
I am saying that I do not believe that you as a town board member have the authority to negotiate that item.
It was part of our police contract discussions. Why would I not? It's a
I know, that's what I'm saying. I do not believe that you have the authority to do that.
Why not?
Because you're a member of the town board, you're not the executive of the town.
I am a member of the designated negotiating team.
I understand what your words are.
voted.
I'm just saying I do not agree with you. I am not acquiescing to your position.
Oh, right. I understand. This is related to the email that you sent where you reminded me that you did not agree with the town board's designation of the negotiating team. I mean, is this related back to
I'm being
that?
consistent. I do not agree.
Okay. All right. I understand. But
Well,
the
Mr.
town
Kirk,
board designated me as a member of the negotiating team. The negotiating team has concluded an agreement on this issue. So I understand.
Believe you have the authority.
the demand for these body worn cameras is extremely high, and that's why the build time is so long. And the quicker we get these things on our police.
No, I understand, Chief. I understand that. We're right. I'm saying I do not agree. I am not acquiescing to your position that you have the authority to negotiate this.
Can I say something really fast? It's just, I guess it's a question and then actually two questions. I apologize. So the first question is, shouldn't our town attorney be on this special board meeting?
Gonna say,
Right? So then we'd be able to
their
ask
budget
these
items. She
questions.
typically doesn't.
But there was agenda items on it. Again, not gonna argue this at all. But
This was not relayed that this was going to be a discussion item at this.
It's a special town board meeting. I think we should have. Anyway, so we won't discuss that tonight. Since the town attorney is not here, would it be an issue, just asking a question, would it be an issue if this waited until next week? Because we are meeting next week. I want to hear from Counselor White and Counselor Boyke as well. I just want to hear their opinions on this one.
that was gonna be my
be
first
valuable.
question. Looking for our legal counsel, or I was
Yes.
gonna ask Jonathan, if you had run this past Robert as well.
I told him that we were working on it and that we anticipated coming up with an agreement on the body worn cameras and we would do it via an MOU. He did not express that there were any problems with it.
Okay, well, if it's you make a resolution, you can make a resolution.
I
That's my
understand that.
understanding.
Ms. White?
Counselor White, did you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I agree. I wish Robert was here.
Yeah, so do I.
So I would agree with waiting till next week to do this. I'm sorry, Chief. But let's just get it done and get the official opinion from the lawyer, and then we'll know what we can do.
That's fine. I guess my question, Mr. Meyer, for clarification is your objection to this tonight an extension of your objection to the town board designating the negotiating team? I mean, are they part and parcel of the same position?
I've been consistent from the very beginning. I do not recognize that you as a town councilor have the authority to negotiate.
despite the fact that the town board granted me that authority,
I,
correct?
I,
You don't recognize the town board has the authority to grant me the authority, is that, I'm just trying to make sure your position's clarified for the record.
right, right. I oppose,
Okay.
in the beginning, I remain opposed.
Okay, well, that having been said, we do have an agreement. We will be moving forward. I have no objection to waiting a week, other than the fact that this is one more week that our police officers will not have this very important item for frankly, what is a nonsense procedural objection, because the town attorney told us that the town board has the authority to designate a negotiating team, and the town board did so. But if that's what the rest of the town board feels, that's fine. I'm not going to attempt to force it through. We still have the deal. We still will have the deal next week, and we will move it forward. It's just unfortunate that this will be another week that the town is not protected from liability, nor are our officers.
And I agree with you, John. It's unfortunate, but if that's
Extremely
what it
unfortunate.
takes, it is.
Judy, if you're prepared to vote on this evening, I am prepared to vote on this evening.
It's up to Jonathan, it's his decision to move forward. In my opinion, I am prepared.
Chief, we don't have to pay for them until they actually come in. Is that not correct?
That is correct. Once we receive them, we will be paying for them.
So what's the harm in passing the resolution, submitting the purchase order, and then if it turns out that I'm wrong and Mr. Meyer's right and I don't have the authority, we can cancel it?
I would still like to wait for the opinion from the attorney.
You know what? Let's do that. And let's hope that in the meantime, when these cameras do arrive a week later than they would have, that there is not some kind of incident that would have been prevented, or liability of the town, or officer safety or officer liability would have been prevented, again, by this, what is a completely nonsense procedural objection.
Well, that's
Already
your
have an- we
opinion.
already
That's
have
your
an
opinion.
answer.
That's your opinion, Mr. Carp.
Well, and you've submitted.
We can
if you
agree
have-
to we can agree to disagree on this item.
Can't agree on that at least, but
Yes,
the
we
town, you know what? I made my position clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very unfortunate.
Further discussion on any other items? If not, I'll make a motion.
I'll
adjourn.
say it. I'll say it. I still do believe it. Having been on this board before, it's not a negative comment, so I'm preparing you for that.
Okay.
From being on this board before, the fact that we do have open discussion with each other is awesome. It's fantastic, and I appreciate it so much. The budget process has been pretty good this year. I mean, I wish we were all together, but I know it's not going to happen. But I do believe, in my heart, that we are doing the best that we can do with these meetings and communicating with each other. I know we get heated. I really do know we get heated. And I mean, to me, I love it because we all have passion for this town, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the ability to speak openly with each other. So.
Thank you,
And I
Mike.
agree.
I have an old friend of mine had an expression that I'll paraphrase, and if you and I agree on everything, one of us is not thinking. So with that said, I thank you very much for your discussion and contribution this evening, and I'll see you next week. I have put a motion to adjourn. Are we all in favor?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, unanimous. Thank you very much, folks.